This is our Royal Enfield Himalayan long-term test bike. I have been riding it for over a year. We've done over 7,000 kilometers on the clock, and it's now time for it to go back. I have had a really good time on this bike, but there have been ups and downs, and that's what today's video is about. I'm going to tell you what it's been like to live with the Himalayan 450. However, we also have two more bikes with us, and both of these bikes are owned by a couple of my colleagues. So collectively, we have 3 bikes and about 17,000 kilometers worth of experience to talk about here. Now, I will bring them in at a later point in the video for them to share their own experience. But for now, let's talk about what I've experienced with the Himalayan 450. And to start with the good, first of all, I'm not going to get into a big review. We've done that plenty of times. You'll see standalone reviews and comparisons. So if you want to know about the Himalayan 450, I'd urge you to check out those videos. But for now, what I can say is that there are many things that I've liked, and probably the thing that I like the most about this bike is just how comfortable it is. No other Indian-made motorcycle to date has a combination of plush suspension, big bike feel, great seating comfort, and a very nice seating position. To me, this is really fantastically comfortable, and I don't mean just in terms of long-distance riding. I enjoy commuting on this motorcycle. I'm going to miss this bike most of all because it's been such a great commute partner. The engine is also very nice. It has its issues. It's a little flat on the bottom end. It is a little vibey at highway cruising speeds, 100 to 120, but the mid-range is fabulous. It's a smooth engine compared to some of its rivals. It makes a nice sound. There's a nice intake sound. The throttle response is good. It's a pretty exciting engine in that respect, and while there are issues, I have grown to quite like it. Now, that's what I've felt about the motorcycle in general. Downsides, well, the first is that it is heavy. It leans a lot onto its side, 195 kgs, but it feels top heavy, and moving these 3 bikes around here to park them for this shoot was quite a workout on its own. The other issue is that now we've not had any particular mechanical failures on the motorcycle at all year long. Press the button, start the bike, it starts up, no problems. It runs with no problems. But there have been some small electric gremlins. For example, the toggle switch, which is something I'm really not fond of on this bike. It's fiddly to use. It's something that's a little inconsistent with controlling this otherwise very nice circular TFT display. That actually failed on us at one point, and we had to get the switch replaced. And this is something that just doesn't apply to this motorcycle. I'd like to see a next generation of switchgear on all REs because this high beam pass switch is a little unintuitive to use. It can be improved. Then there's the mode switch. Sometimes it works, sometimes it tells you mode change denied. You've got to turn off the key, restart. But again, it's not something I use very often. I just keep the bike in its normal mode because eco mode reduces the power too much and it just feels sluggish. So I tend to not use many of the features that are available in the bike, and that is a shame. Then in terms of other issues we faced from the very beginning, and this bike came to us brand new, the bike displayed a tendency to sort of lean to the right when you let go of the handlebar. Now, that's not something I would do very often, so it took me some time to realize, but it consistently did this. You leave the handlebar and the bike starts to lean to the right, even if the road's camber is going against that. I sent the bike back to Royal Enfield a couple of times. It took them some time to figure it out. What I was told that it eventually came down to was some torque ratings for critical bolts that matched the engine to the frame. Some of them were off, and that was creating a mild alignment issue. It has been fixed. Another issue that I faced, and this is something that has gone back all the way to the original Himalayan, is that the cone set tends to come loose. Now, up till about 5,000 kilometers, there was no issue, and then it started to get loose. I gave it back to the service center. They said that they tightened it, but the issue came back really quite quickly. We have tightened it a couple of times. It keeps recurring, and I'm given to understand that there is some component in there that needs to be changed. So we're going to have to give the bike back to Royal Enfield and let them figure that out. Perhaps what has driven me the most mad on this motorcycle is the fact that these mirrors come loose very easily and then they just flap around. It's something we've experienced on quite a few Royal Enfields. If this was my bike, I would just Loctite those mirrors into place because it's annoying to have to deal with them. You have to get 2 spanners out to tighten it back into place. The final small irritation that I've had with this bike is I have sent it for service twice in the time that we've had it, and on both occasions the service center has not reset the service indicator, so it tells me that the service is overdue by some 500 odd days and by 6,000 odd kilometers when I know the bike has been serviced. Again, a minor thing, but it's something that the service center should be taking care of. Now, I haven't had too much experience with the service center. My colleagues have, so they will tell you what that's been like. But beyond that, there really haven't been issues as such. It's been a really enjoyable experience. As you can see, we don't have the tubeless tires on our bike, but these two bikes do. It's a very affordable option. 10,000 rupees for those rims is unbelievable. Royal Enfield is clearly taking a hit to give its customers that price. Another thing I'd like to talk about is we had some unseasonal rain today on the way to work. That's why all these bikes are so dirty, although I think they look good dirty as well. Adventure bike with mud on it just looks right. But this is a nice example to show you how the bike deals with splatter for the rider. And all three of us have actually discussed this today. None of us came with mud on our backs or mud on the seat or mud on the backpacks. The bike sort of keeps the rider protected from filth being kicked up on the road. That is a nice thing. I would like to see the rear shock shielded a little bit from the mud, but actually on all three bikes, the shock itself is quite clean, so the bike is protecting itself. You will notice that the fender gets quite dirty and rain streaks tend to come up here with wind, and it's a cool streaky pattern that looks quite nice, but it doesn't really dirty the rider, and that is a nice thing. On that topic, another thing that I want to talk about is this white fuel tank. It's a flat matte white finish, and when the bike came to us new, I was worried that it would stain, it wouldn't age well, but honestly it's actually done quite well, whereas KTM's new 390 pretty much stains instantly by nature of what that plastic panel is. This has actually held itself quite well, and it really doesn't look that old, so the finish is good. I think that about sums up what I want to share with this motorcycle. There are other things to talk about, particularly what the service experience has been like, what service costs, spare parts availability, and I have some idea there, but I think my colleagues will be able to tell you that much better. So come on in, guys. That is Siddhesh. This is Kuldeep. These are the people you don't see on camera, but they're the people who make the magic happen behind the camera. For example, Kuldeep was our photographer on the Himalayan launch. He's the one who got those great images, and he liked the bike so much that he ended up booking it soon after?
Couple of months.
Okay.
Yeah.
And Siddhesh is the guy who edited that video, and Siddhesh ended up buying this bike more recently.
A week ago.
A week ago. So yeah. Kuldeep has about 9,000 odd kilometers on his bike. Siddhesh has about 500. Collectively, that's where our 17,000 come from. And we're just going to chat and see what it's been like for both these guys. So let's start with you, Kuldeep. I have two questions for both of you. First question, what do you like about this bike?
The first and foremost, it's the suspension.
Yeah.
It's epic. I don't know how Ari has managed to do it with in collaboration with Showa, but the suspension has been the highlight for me.
Yeah.
And then the ergonomics, how relaxed the riding position is.
And you have a long commute.
I have a long commute.
So yeah.
So occasionally I ride to office, which is about 65 kilometers one way. So that's 130 kilometers plus the traffic on the Western Express. But about every weekend, I ride about 200-250 kilometers, just try and explore some new trails, some shooting locations. So that way my riding has been 80% highway, 20% city. And this has been the highlight for me on the highway, just the riding position, the ergonomics, suspension. I also like how stable it is at high speeds on the highway, and of course it has a road presence. So that's also a positive point.
Siddhesh, much newer bike for you. You probably are much more excited right now. So what do you think?
Out of the 500 kilometers, more or less 50% of it was on the highways on weekend rides, and the rest of it was commuting. What I loved about this bike, so just for the context, I had a much powerful motorcycle for almost a year and a half, and that was my only motorcycle. But what I loved about this one, what I loved about this one is that how easy it is to commute on this one, and I'm carrying a much faster pace when I'm commuting.
Yeah.
I like the suspension. I don't have to worry about speed breakers or the patchy roads. Other than that, I also like the fact how tall you see it on the bike. So there's like a different dimension that opens up to you. Yeah. You can see around very easily. You can see very far ahead of you. So it becomes much...
You sort of sit above the traffic, right? And you get a great view around.
This bike, I honestly feel much more safer while commuting. It's very easy on this bike to switch between lanes and have a... Like, this thing doesn't have any blind spots on it, is what I feel.
Okay. The caveat to that, all three of us are 5'8 plus 5'10.
Yeah, 5'10.
Yeah.
So 5'10.
So that is something to consider. While larger people really do like this, not just, I mean, it feels good to have a big solid feeling motorcycle. It is a downside to shorter people, much more so than the old Himalayan. And I know short riders who feel intimidated by this motorcycle. So that is something you do need to keep in mind. And I think it's good that Royal Enfield brought back the Scram 440. although it's not on sale technically at the moment, but that is something for shorter people to consider because this can feel intimidating. Okay, with that, let's move to question number 2. Kuldeep, in your 1 year with this bike, what have you not liked?
Okay, to begin with, for almost a year, I was riding on tube tires, and within the first couple of months, I've had my first puncture, and I've had to get it fixed from the roadside, highway side repair guy, who ended up damaging my disc pads. So that was a big expense.
Yeah.
And then second being, he didn't have the RE size tube. So I ended up putting the Splendor tube instead. And then it took me another 3 months or so to get the RE tube. But then for a year
Availability was an issue.
Yeah, availability was an issue. So for a year or so, I was riding on tube, and that didn't help the anxiety actually.
Yeah. I think you had a similar story with your Conti
Yes.
GT 535, right? Or you had a 650.
Yeah.
And you were also running on a Splendor
So
tube.
I was running on some Splendor tube, which was like 90 section tube. And I had that tube till I changed to the Seat tires.
Right.
Because I couldn't find any other, like the proper size tube.
So the basic story is that spare parts availability was a big issue at the beginning.
Yes.
And I think it is still somewhat of an issue for certain
Yeah,
parts
they
as
have
well.
sorted it out to an extent, but it's still an issue.
You were telling me you wanted a rear tire, you want to go for a long ride right now, and it's not easy to get a rear
It's not easily available. I mean, the service center can order it for you, but the waiting period, as I know, it's about 2 weeks.
Okay. So you have to plan that well.
You have to plan that.
Cost of parts also. I have also had my rear brake pads changed. This is the first motorcycle in my entire career where I've changed rear brake pads. I usually never touch the rear. But on the Himalayan, it really helps you to control the bike. It's a big disc.
Yeah.
It's quite sharp off-road, actually, a little too sharp. But on-road, you get a very nice sense of control on the bike.
Yes,
I use
you
it a
do.
lot. And I wore through it in about 6,000 kilometers.
Similar,
And it's
yeah.
3,000 rupees for a set of pads.
Yeah, it
which
is.
is not cheap. I mean, it's
It's
not
not, but that's what-
outrageously expensive, but it's not cheap
It's
either.
not cheap either.
The tires also quite expensive. I think they're over 10 grand a set.
Yeah.
But they're good tires.
They are good tires.
I think
Around-
they perform really well.
Yeah.
And if you want good things, be willing to spend a little more money.
Little
on them.
more.
So that's acceptable.
But while it's expensive,
Yeah.
I think it is also a very decent tire.
Absolutely.
I've done about 9,000 kilometers on it, and I have still about 50% life.
Yeah, you got a
left
decent
on it.
amount of
Yeah.
life left there.
So I'm expecting around 15,000 before
So
it
you would go
actually
back
ends.
to the same tire basically.
I would definitely.
Okay. I probably would too on this bike.
Yeah.
Have you had any problems in particular with this bike?
So there are a couple of issues, yes, that I want to point out. In fact, 3. First thing, again, I mean, as you mentioned, the mirror. For me, it's the left-hand side.
Yeah.
For you, it was, I think, the lockdown.
Loctite,
has
I'm telling you, Loctite.
Yeah, I have finally managed to just tighten it to its maximum.
Right.
It has stayed since then at its position.
They're really good mirrors on their own. The
Yeah,
way they
they
cut
are.
the glare is really
Yeah,
nice.
yeah,
It's just that they come loose.
Yeah, they come loose. Second being the switchgear has been replaced under warranty because it kept giving me check engine sign.
Okay.
Which
But yours was the right side switchgear.
The right side switchgear, not the left one. And then the third one being, I've had on couple of occasions, I've had a fuel spill here,
You know, you brought this to my attention as well. There are some stains on my bike as well.
which I suspect has to be from fuel spill because it's very identical to mine.
Right. And the bike leans a lot on the side.
Because
stand,
I
so-
think, so when you fill it to the brim, because it leans so much on the on the left, on the side stand, I think that might be leading to fuel spill.
So maybe fill till the auto cut and
Then
don't
I
brim
guess
it.
don't fill it to a brim, or if you do, make sure you park it on the center stand because that's when the fuel spill has stopped.
Sure. Which
So
is a bit of a
that-
pain to do.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. You also had something going on with the pressure washing, you were telling me?
So what I've observed, regardless where you wash it at the service center or outside, if they end up spraying directly on the switch gear, it keeps giving me the check engine light.
Even if your service center has washed
Even at the service center has washed it. So I suspect they might be just putting a lot of pressure and spraying it directly on the switch gear, which might be leading to the
So what have
seepage
they told
from
you
inside.
to do about this?
So the technician said, just switch the bike on and off 4 or 5 times and it will go.
And it does go away.
And it does go away. But that's one point I would like to point out, that when you're washing it, just make sure that the pressure wash guy doesn't spray out the water directly at the switch gear.
Okay. Okay, I've noticed you've also done quite a few mods on your bike, but we'll come back to that.
Sure.
Let's, Siddhesh, I know you don't have a lot of time on the bike,
Yeah.
but what have you not liked so far?
So far, I just don't like the brakes.
You're coming from a very sporty motorcycle.
Yeah. So even I need a lot of time to adapt.
Yeah.
I'm not used to braking so early. in panic situations or in like urgent braking, there's no feedback from the front end. I could feel the suspension diving in, but then there's a moment where I feel that the front wheel might lock and the ABS might not kick in.
Right.
And same thing with the rear, the ABS, even if the ABS is on, it locks, it'll
Lock and
slide
release.
for like few feet and then the ABS will kick in. I feel it's just a matter of getting used to the brakes. So that's the only thing that I didn't like about the bike as of now. But the rest of the parts is like damn good.
Okay.
Yeah, too happy with
It's a
it.
happy new owner. You've put lots of stuff on your bike. I think I'll start with what I would do to modify this bike.
Sure.
And it's not a lot. I would take this whole thing off. I have no intention of, it's just top weight on an already top heavy motorcycle. Figure out a way to mount that indicator, take it off and put a good crash protection down like either you've got or you've got. And on that topic, please stick to original Royal Enfield parts. The whole chassis failure issue was very unfortunate. It should not have happened. Royal Enfield should have thought about that. But they say that you have to stick to their parts and it has to be torqued to the correct ratings to prevent any fear or threat of a chassis failure. So let's just keep it to that. I would take that off. I have put the comfort seat on this bike. I love it. I would definitely do that. I would add on the tubeless tires and maybe some modification to pep up the engine in the low end, but I could live with this.
Yeah.
And that's it. I wouldn't do any more. You have done a lot more. So you've got lights, lower protection. These are RE
Knuckle
guards.
guards.
These
These
are
are
RE
RE
hand
guards,
guards
yeah,
and
RE
a big
guards.
windscreen out here.
Great.
So how are you happy with what you've done? Why have you done it?
I always like to have a personalized touch to my bike. So that way, I will always put accessories and try and personalize it as much as possible. Again, I mean, the most noticeable part is the windscreen. That's more like an aesthetic from the
Do you feel
more like
better on the highway with it?
I am not feeling much of a difference because at my height, I am not really a 130, 140 kilometer kind of a guy. I prefer riding at 90, 100. So at 100 kph, I wasn't feeling too much wind buffeting anyway. But that's purely from the aesthetic standpoint. It also
And your bike does look bigger.
yeah,
than
so
these two.
purely from that standpoint, I just wanted to give it little more road presence. Next is the aux lights. Because most of my riding is on the Mumbai-Ahmedabad highway, which is fairly dark after sunset. Although I don't prefer riding at night, I like to have it just in case if I end up riding post sunset, it's better to have because the company headlight is not that bright enough.
Yeah.
So I don't want to take the risk.
It's
And
not terrible, but it's average.
it's not adequate for me.
Yeah.
So again, aux lights over there. Knuckle guards, again, purely from the aesthetic standpoints, but it also adds a little bit of protection element to it if I end up going on a trail ride. And with my skill set, I fear dropping the bike a lot more compared to you. So I had to get those also on. And again, radiator guard and the rally bash plate.
Yeah, you've gone full rally on the bash.
Full rally bash plate.
Alright.
So again, purely from the aesthetic standpoint, because I personally feel the radiator guard, the RE standard. I mean, so
I don't know. I
RE
think that's pretty
radiator, so-
adequate. Yeah, we were just discussing that the shape of it will block stones.
It is,
out.
it is.
But
But it just looks
it's
nice.
your bike and it's okay.
Yeah, it just
Anything
looks
else
nice.
left to do?
Probably I'll put the touring seat because I really like the touring seat that we have on our long term. So that will probably be the last accessory that
Okay.
I will put on the bike.
Cool. So yeah, on the topic of the windscreens, I think both of us like the smaller windscreen.
Yeah.
It gives enough airflow to you, but it also keeps you reasonably shielded on the highway. I would not change that.
Yeah, even I won't change it. But I also feel that we both have pretty good aerodynamic helmets. What I observed was my previous helmet used to get a lot of wind buffeting and it wasn't stable. It used to get pushed back and all. But with a good helmet, I think this is more than
So you noticed a difference when you changed it?
yes. And plus in our conditions, I don't think I'll ever put a bigger windscreen.
Right, fair enough. Anything else?
Not really. Mostly, if there's a mod that I'll ever do, it would be the fuel X just to improve the fueling, make it a little bit crisper.
Yeah.
But that's
And if I was going to do a lot of off-roading with this bike, I would do a taller handlebar. We recently went out on the F900 GS and I went with Gavin as the guy tracking him.
Yeah.
It was fun. The bike kept up with him, but I was a little leaned over, especially up steep climbs. And
You're also too tall.
Yeah, I would. That's the one thing. But okay, I think the last thing for us to discuss is service costs and the experience that you guys have had service. First service was about 1,800 rupees, something like that,
Yeah, 1700
with an oil change.
with an oil.
The second one was
Second one was free.
Okay, with
Second
no oil
one
change.
is
With no oil change.
inspection.
Okay, that's a 6-month service.
That's a 6 months.
And
Yeah.
on the third service?
Third one, it was again around $1,800
Okay.
with the oil change.
Okay. So it's not very expensive. I think
No,
that-
it's-
Yeah.
I thought it was about 3,000 rupees for a service.
No, I just checked my invoice. And
Okay.
Yeah, that's what
Fantastic.
it
So
says.
the service cost is good. How has the service experience been for you?
There has been a lot of negative publicity on social media, primarily about how the owners are not happy with their experience. But personally, me and my bike both have had a very good experience. I've had been attended very well, and the bike has been also looked after very well. All my queries have been answered very promptly. So, but that could also be because how you deal with the
It really comes
people
down to
over
the
there.
people
So,
and the place.
exactly,
For
yeah.
example, I wish that they had paid more attention to resetting my service indicator or having fixed the cone set properly the first time. So I think from different places, some people have a good experience, some people have an okay
Yeah.
experience, and
Yeah.
sometimes have a slightly off experience. What about you?
So my PDI was not done properly. The very next day after bringing the bike home, I had to take it back to the dealer, to the service center, because my handle was misaligned.
Oh.
They fixed it. My mirror was loose. They fixed that. The levers and all were off.
Right.
They fixed everything. So, and also from the previous Royal Enfield experience that I had, I also claimed warranty on the previous bike. So, I had a very good experience at the service center. There were some issues which got fixed. I would have liked if that was fixed before the delivery, but it's okay. Overall, it was a decent experience. Not an issue. They
So basically, it's ups and downs, but tending on the positive side.
yeah, like
Okay.
they are helpful. They want to solve your problems as soon as possible. Like yesterday, I told you I had a water pooling inside the
Yeah.
fuel lid,
Yeah.
which I just called the guy and they took the bike to the service center and they cleaned the fuel.
The drain
hole.
line. Yeah.
So with the service experience, I'm pretty happy. I just tell them what the problem is and I just leave, and once the bike is fixed, they just call me and I take the bike.
Right.
But I prefer staying and overseeing.
I've also traditionally liked to stay
Yeah,
with my bikes.
Exactly.
Cool. So I think in that regard, India is getting used to more and more expensive bikes. And I do feel that every manufacturer needs to up its experience in terms of how the service center is trained to deal with problems. And this is a more discerning customer and you need to be more careful and more trained to deal with that customer. It needs to happen across the board.
Agree.
But I think that's a good place to conclude.
Yep.
I like to think of all my long-term bikes. At the end of it, would I want to buy one? And with this bike, if I was looking for one bike in my garage to do everything, this would really be a strong contender. It's a characterful motorcycle. I've bonded with it. It has treated me well. It's never failed on me. It's had its issues. It has its drawbacks, definitely if you're a shorter person who's uncomfortable with the height, for sure. But it's also a really lovely motorcycle and I could see myself owning
Totally.
one. Like
Yeah,
you too.
sure. It's that one bike, as you rightly mentioned, for city or highway, one bike that does it all.
Yeah.
This will have to be one.
Okay, I think we can end it on that.
Yeah.
Yep. Got it.